You remember the orange roof. The part you may have missed is this. By the late 1960s, Howard Johnson's has more than 1,000 restaurants and motor lodges on American roads. Then spends the next decades disappearing so thoroughly it feels like a trick. Act 1. Setup. In the 1930s and 1940s, the United States is turning into a nation of car trips. Families pile into Buicks and Fords, maps folded in the glove box. Radio humming, network shows, and roadside eating still feels risky. Cleanliness matters. Consistency matters more. Howard Johnson starts smaller than the roof suggests. In 1925, in Quincy, Massachusetts, Howard Deering Johnson buys a struggling pharmacy counter and begins selling a richer ice cream recipe. He pushes flavor count to 28. Vanilla, strawberry, coffee. A promise in a paper cup. Now the secret problem. Travelers do not just need lunch. They need certainty. In an era before online reviews, a chain with bright paint, standard menus, and scrubbed restrooms becomes a signal from the highway. The orange roof works like a lighthouse with parking. Johnson understands branding early and with unusual precision. Architect Rufus Nims helps shape the colonial-style buildings, cupola and all. The simple Simon and the Pieman logo smiles from signs. The clink of heavy china says this stop wants middle-class trust, not quick suspicion. Act 2. Rise. The chain spreads through franchising, and that matters. Howard Johnson's can multiply without owning every site. By the 1950s, orange roofs rise along turnpikes and U.S. routes. A family heading to the World's Fair or Cape Cod sees the same building again and again. The food is carefully standardized. Fried clam strips become a signature, tied to Johnson's early ties with seafood supplier J.J. Nissen, and New England tastes carried outward. Ice cream remains the dessert anchor. Kids know the flavor card. Parents know the coffee will taste familiar. Then motels change the scale. Howard Johnson's motor lodges begin opening in the 1950s, pairing restaurant and lodging in one branded stop. The formula is clean, bright, and easy to spot after dark. Pull off, eat, sleep, leave early. America learns the rhythm. Act 2 continues. By 1961, Howard Johnson serves meals in places that make the brand feel national, including turnpike plazas and airport-adjacent sites. The chain advertises reliability more than glamour. That lands perfectly in a country where vacation time is short and driving distances keep growing. The peak gets very exact. In the 1960s, Howard Johnson's briefly operates more restaurants than McDonald's. The company reaches over 1,000 restaurants and more than 500 motor lodges. That is not a regional memory. That is a roadside grid. And there is a cultural flashpoint people forget. In 1961, the Howard Johnson's restaurant in Alexandria, Virginia, becomes part of the Freedom Ride story when manager refusal helps trigger confrontation. The chain is now big enough that one restaurant can mirror the nation's larger fight. The orange roof means vacation itself. Postcards show turquoise motel pools, neat bedspreads, and the restaurant sign visible from the room. Kids come home with tiny soaps and menu memories. Parents keep the matchbook in a kitchen drawer for years. Act 3. Fall or twist. Here's the twist. Howard Johnson's does not vanish because Americans stop traveling. It weakens because the road changes around it. The interstate highway system favors different sites, faster exits, and harder competition from chains built for speed. The menu also ages into a liability. Full-service dining takes time. Competitors like McDonald's, Burger King, and later Wendy's train drivers to expect rapid, cheap meals near highway ramps. Howard Johnson still offers table service, broader menus, and larger buildings with higher labor costs. Then ownership shifts begin to blur the brand. In 1979, Imperial Group plc acquires Howard Johnson's. In 1985, Marriott buys the company, mostly interested in the lodges, and sells many restaurants to Prime Motor Inns. Hold on to that detail. The roof and the rooms are splitting apart. That split gets messy. Prime Motor Inn struggles with debt through the late 1980s and early 1990s. Some restaurants close, others downgrade. Some lodges lose the restaurant connection entirely. A chain built on sameness starts looking uneven. And sameness was the whole bargain. There is also a subtler wound. Howard Johnson's had trained Americans to trust chain hospitality. Then stronger hotel brands and stronger fast food brands each take a piece of that trust. Holiday Inn owns one kind of night. McDonald's owns one kind of lunch. Hojo is stranded between categories. By the 1990s, many locations are converted, abandoned, or hanging on with faded paint and a menu that feels out of step with the road outside. The orange roof remains visible from the parking lot, but now it reads less like certainty and more like a postcard nobody mailed. A few sites become ghost artifacts. Signs lose letters. Cupolas survive behind new facades. Collectors hunt old ashtrays, postcards, and children's menus on eBay. Former guests argue online about the exact shade of orange and whether the ice cream flavors really reach 28 every season. The motels live a stranger afterlife. The Howard Johnson Hotel name survives longer through licensing, eventually under Wyndham. So the brand still exists in diluted form, detached from the old restaurant ritual. You can sleep under the name without ever meeting the original chain. The restaurants dwindle to almost nothing. A long-running Lake George, New York location keeps the old menu alive for years and becomes a pilgrimage stop for people chasing fried clams and memory. Then the last standalone Howard Johnson's restaurant closes in 2022. That's where it gets weird. A brand that once taught America how to stop on the road does not end with one dramatic collapse. It thins out through asset sales, highway redesign, labor costs, and cultural drift. One orange roof goes dark, then another, then another. When you look back, Howard Johnson's tells you how mid-century America wanted travel to feel safe, clean, predictable. A family could cross several states and still find the same coffee cup, the same clam plate, the same roofline cutting into the sky. The loss is not only about a restaurant chain, it marks the moment when the road stops being a string of distinct promises and becomes a faster, more distinct, harsher blur of interchange options. Something gets more efficient. Something else gets harder to recognize by shape alone. So here is the archivist's note. An orange roof once worked like shared vocabulary. Millions of strangers understood it at a glance. Then the language thinned until only scraps remained in motel lots, postcard racks, and the smell memory of fried seafood near an exit ramp. Lock that memory in the vault, and I'll see you in the next case. Which one of these had you forgotten until just now? The orange roof, the fried clam plate, the 28 ice cream flavors, or the Motor Lodge pool?